Hi Year 9s, so here we are on our next lesson about transformations. We're going to talk about rotations today. So if you're watching the YouTube video, you can write down the date and the title. The title is Rotations, and then you can get yourself started with the starter like we normally do. Our 10 questions in our book or on a piece of paper or wherever it is that you might be writing out your work right now. This normally takes you 10 minutes to do in lesson, so go ahead and give yourself some time to get those 10 questions done. If you'd like to, now would be a good time to press pause on the video while you are doing that. And here are your answers. They're there in green. You can go ahead and mark your work in green pen. Ideally, you have been doing that this whole time. I hope. Who knows? We'll see when we get back to school, I guess. So that is it for the starter. We are going to talk about rotations. So rotations in transformations are about turning a shape. The shape doesn't get any bigger or any smaller or anything like that, but it's going to be turned. And there are two different ways that we typically turn a shape. And the first one is clockwise. There's two different directions. And when we think about a clock, clockwise goes, if you will, towards the right is sometimes how people think about it. So if you have a shape, you're going to turn it towards the right. And then you've got anti-clockwise, and so that is turning your shape in the opposite direction to which a clock goes. And if you think about that, it would be something like this. It would be turning the other way. And I think that looks like towards the left. And then they will often tell us in rotations, besides telling us which direction to turn the shape, they'll also tell us how much to turn the shape. So there's two different kinds of numbers here, but they're pretty much both the same thing. So sometimes they'll tell us to turn the shape 90 degrees or 180 degrees or 270, but I would say 90 and 180 are definitely the most common. So it's 90 degrees and 180 degrees. And those can be the same as saying do a quarter of a turn or do half of a turn. So like 90 degrees, if you think about that, is a right angle. So this is a quarter as well. So if you think about a whole circle being like this, and the circle goes all the way around, 90 degrees is 1/4. So all of these things mean the same, and hopefully that makes sense, but we'll see how this works in an actual example. All right, here we go. All right, let's try out an example together. So this question says, rotate this triangle 90 degrees clockwise about the point O. So we've got 90 degrees, we've got clockwise, and we've got the point O. So clockwise is going to go this way, and the point O is really important. Now, there's three things that we need to talk about before we actually try to do this. So there's three things that I want you to remember when we talk about rotations. It sounds a little bit violent, but it's going to be very helpful. There's three things you need to remember. The first thing you need to remember is to trace. So you're going to trace out your shape. That's not very violent at all. I get that. The next part is, so we're going to trace the shape, and then we're going to stab the piece of paper. Now that sounds really, really violent, but it makes sure that you use this point here because it says the point O. So we're going to trace the shape, and then we're going to stab our pencil at the point O. So here's the point O right here. We're going to trace, stab, and then we're going to actually do the turn. Trace, stab, and then turn. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our tracing paper out. Now, if you're at home and you don't have any tracing paper, I would say put your piece of paper maybe up against the window. That's the best thing that I can think of. And then you can see through the paper a little bit more, or you can write in a really, really dark pen, which makes it a little bit easier to see. So I've put my tracing paper on top of my shape. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace out my shape. So I want to make sure that the tracing paper goes on top of the entire shape, and it also goes on top of the point as well. So I'm going to go ahead and trace out my shape. So there we go. I've done my trace. Now I'm going to do my stab portion. So now I'm going to stab my pencil on the red dot, and I'm going to turn my tracing paper 90 degrees clockwise. Here we go. So keeping my pencil on the red dot, I'm going to rotate the entire piece of tracing paper 90 degrees to clockwise. So as soon as it lines up, I stop. Now, what I want to do is I suggest that you lift up each corner of your tracing paper, and when you lift up each corner of your tracing paper, you make a little dot where that particular corners of the shape are, and then from there, I would actually take my piece of tracing paper and slide it off the page. Alright, and then obviously your triangle's not going to be exactly there, but your corners are going to be there, and you can just join it up. And then there we go, the question's done. We've rotated this triangle 90 degrees clockwise about the point O. Let's see if we can try another one. Alright, example 2, I guess. Rotate this triangle 180 degrees about the point O. Now, this time it doesn't say which direction to go, and that's because it's 180 degrees, and 180 degrees is half a turn. Now, it doesn't matter if I start here and I turn this way, or if I start here and I turn this way. Either way, I'm going to make half a turn, and I'm going to be facing the other way. I promise this would be really funny if we were in class together. I have a really good joke about this, but I'll have to tell you later. So remember your things that you have to do. So we've got to do trace, we have to stab, and we have to turn. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our piece of tracing paper and put it on top of our shape. So there we go. We haven't done anything. We have to do our trace part of it now. So we trace the shape out as best as we can. And then we want to stab right where this red dot is. That's where I'm going to put my pen. And now I'm going to turn the piece of paper. So this time we're going to turn 180 degrees, so we don't stop here at 90, we keep on going until we get to 180. Now you might be able to see, it's not perfectly lined up. I can tell where it's supposed to go though. I can tell I've made a little bit of a silly mistake, and it's not really the end of the world. You can see where the blue dot and the red dot are no longer on top of each other. So I'm going to try to move that so I can put them back on top of each other. Just like that. So sometimes that's going to happen with your piece of paper. It just might mean that you didn't exactly stab it in the right particular point. And that's fine. Sometimes it happens. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And then like before, you're going to lift up the corners so that you have a point here, and you're going to mark that, and then you're going to mark another point here. Now that point didn't change at all, and then you're going to mark this point down here. And then you're going to slide your piece of tracing paper off your page, and you're going to join it up. And there you go, rotation 180 degrees about point O. Alright, and another example, slightly different this time, but more or less the same kind of things. Rotate this shape, this time it says 1/4 of a turn, anti-clockwise about the point O. So 1/4 of a turn is the same as 90 degrees, and anti-clockwise is going this way. So remember, trace out your shape, stab where the point is, and then turn your tracing paper. All right, so here we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to trace out the new shape. So trace out my shape. Now I'm going to stab the tracing paper right here on this red point, and then I'm going to turn everything. Now, the other thing that's different about this particular question is that there is a gap right here between the X and the actual shape. Don't worry, it doesn't make any difference at all. Everything is going to happen exactly the same. So you've traced it out, I've stabbed my pencil where this X is, and I'm about to turn the actual shape. So we're going 90 degrees anti-clockwise, so 90 degrees against the way a clock goes. So we're going to turn this way. Okay, and again, it's not completely perfect, but it's absolutely fine. I have a good idea of where the actual points are going to go, so I'm just going to try to straighten this out. And then again, I'm just going to go and lift up each corner, and I'm going to put a little dot on my piece of paper, and I can see exactly where the corners are supposed to be. And then again, I'm going to join them up using my ruler. All right, and then there we go. The question is done. We've rotated this shape 1/4 of a turn anti-clockwise. All done. All right, on to the last two examples now. So this question is exactly the same idea, just it's worded slightly different. It has one thing that's different about it. It says rotate this shape, again, 90 degrees anti-clockwise, so that's going this way, about the point 3, 3. Now, thankfully, if you've been practicing all the things that I've been asking you to practice lately, you did some plotting lines earlier last week, maybe, and then maybe you've also remembered about plotting the coordinates. So this one doesn't have a point O for us to rotate this about. It has an actual coordinate, and that coordinate is 3, 3. So starting from here, I'm going to go across to 3 and up to 3. So that is the point that I want to rotate this about. So I'm going to rotate the entire square about the point 3, 3. That is the one that is marked with the red X. So let's think of all the steps that I have to do. I have to trace out my shape. I have to stab it on the new red X, and then I have to turn the tracing paper. So we put the piece of tracing paper on our shape. And then, like always, we trace out the shape as best as we can. And now I'm going to stab my pencil right here on this blue cross. And now I'm going to turn the paper. We're going 90 degrees anti-clockwise. And there we go. That one lined up pretty nicely, and then I'm going to lift up the corners of my tracing paper, and I know I'm looking for a corner here, and here, and here, and here. And then I'm going to join them up using my ruler, and I'm going to slide my piece of tracing paper out. Okay, obviously I can't slide my piece of tracing paper out online, but you get the general idea. And then there you go, that's it. All right, the very last example from me today, you've got a quadrant this time, and it is got positive and negatives in it. I wouldn't really worry about that. Nothing fancy is happening. But here we go. Rotate this shape 90 degrees again. We're going clockwise this time, about the point 2, 2. So starting from here, we're going to go 2 across and 2 up. So this is going to be our point of rotation this time. So I go ahead and I get my tracing paper, and I place that on top of the shape, making sure that I can reach the point of rotation and the shape all at the same time. And then I get my pen out and I make sure that I can trace out the shape that I'm looking for. So I've done my trace part. Now I'm going to stab the paper right here on the X. And now I'm going to turn the shape and the paper together. So 90 degrees clockwise. So everything moves 90 degrees. And that's a bit dodgy, but it's pretty much it. So you're just going to mark each of the corners with an X, lifting up your tracing paper as you go. And then join up all of the corners using your ruler. Okay, I don't think that today's lesson is going to be super easy for you to do on PowerPoint, but I really want you to give it a go. I would recommend that you use a piece of paper as a piece of tracing paper and actually draw the shapes out on the piece of paper and then put them on your computer screen if you're doing them like that. I have done that before at school, and I promise you it does work. And if you have any questions or concerns, remember you can always email me. I'll put my email address on ePraise. All right, have a good day.